Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the Piracy Bill 2012. The bill seeks to extend the proposed piracy law to the exclusive economic zone of India and makes piracy punishable with up to death sentence. To discuss the issue, I have with me Dr. M. Gandhi, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, Senior Fellow, Observer Research Foundation, and Mr. Shishir Upadhyay, former Joint Director, Operations and Intelligence, Indian Navy, and also part of the consultant IHS Jane's Weekly. Now for the headlines. The Piracy Bill proposes death penalty for pirates who are accused of causing death. The proposed law makes grant of bail almost impossible. And the bill shifts burden of proof on the accused, so now the accused will have to prove that he is not guilty. Pirates caught by the Indian Navy or the Coast Guard will find it difficult to escape Indian legal system. The government for the first time proposes death penalty for pirates in the Piracy Bill. There has been an increase in piracy activity globally, and India doesn't have any laws to deter such activity.
The Gulf of Aden and coast of Somalia is notorious for pirate attacks. Some incidents of pirate attacks have spilled over to the Indian side, close to India's exclusive economic zone on its western coast. The Navy and the Coast Guard have succeeded in apprehending a number of Somalia pirates who are now in the custody of Indian police. But without any effective legal framework, it is difficult for the judiciary to convict the pirates. The government proposes a tough piracy bill to empower the judiciary.
Well, piracy has become a multi-billion-dollar business today. We are quite certain that there is some kind of syndicates that are operating, and the persons who actually do the job are not the ones who are getting the full benefit or not getting the larger share of the ransom. That goes into something else.
Bill defines the term piracy as an illegal act of violence or detention committed by private crew of a private ship or a private aircraft on the international waters, or any act which is deemed piratical under the customary of international law.
And it is pursuant to 1982 Law of the Sea Convention, which mandates every state should take measures to repress piracy. So this is almost after 30 years this has been done in India. So at least better late than be never.
The bill makes piracy a punishable offence irrespective of state's jurisdiction. The bill imposes rigorous punishments on pirates if the intention of the piracy is to damage any another ship. Any attempt by a person to support piracy is also punishable with imprisonment or with fine. Bill proposes to punish a pirate with life imprisonment or death if any activity results in death of a passenger on the attacked ship.
How does it protect Indian vessels and Indian citizens who are on high seas, maybe in the high seas bordering some other neighboring state or bordering some other country? Now, if an Indian vessel is attacked by a pirate, this piracy bill does not give any protection to such kind of an Indian vessel. Now, that particular Indian vessel or that kind of a pirates who attack an Indian vessel not within India's economic exclusive zone, Indian courts will not have any jurisdiction. So, India will have to strive for a reciprocal thing.
India has been facing serious problems in ensuring prosecution of the pirates, as the Criminal Procedure Code does not entertain prosecution for piracy as a crime. Indian Navy and Coastal Guard attempted using provisions of Indian Penal Code and High Court judgments but did not succeed. Limitations of Indian Penal Code in punishing those pirates who have committed crime on the international waters made the government to go for these kind of legislations. But the problem with these kind of piracy lies on the land, not on the international waters. Raj Kamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
The purpose of the bill is to define the expression piracy so as to include acts as given in 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea as acts of piracy. My question to you, Dr. Gandhi, is concerns of India. What are those concerns and how have you actually managed to address those concerns through this legislation?
See, the general concerns first is that whenever the piracy that takes place, to prosecute and punish, there needs to be a legal definition of piracy. We have been dealing with piracy so far under the Indian Penal Code provisions and also provisions in the Admiralty, old colonial legislation, Admiralty Acts, where piracy reference is there, but the definition is not there. Once you are trying to make a definition in the legislation, you have to take on board your international obligation also, and what is the commonly accepted definition for piracy in the law of nations.
My question to you, Dr. Gandhi, is, and I'll bring in Dr. Ghosh on this,
Yes.
concerns of India. This you've addressed, that how you have addressed and defined piracy, that is for everyone to see.
Yes.
My question to you, Dr. Ghosh, is concerns of India. How does this bill address that?
Most of these so-called piracy incidents which occur, the most of them, and we are not only talking about the Somalian piracy, which is happening almost on the economic zone of India. The Somalians are coming up till there, and this is nearly about 1,600 nautical miles off the coast of Somalia. I'm not only talking of that. Most of the smaller incidents, and this is what used to happen in Malacca, is that they are small robberies. That is why what used to happen is that you used to have details of various incidents that take place, and it used to be mentioned as incidents of piracy and armed robbery until you came to the IMB definition. Now, this bill has straight away taken the definition from the UNCLOS, and it has not taken the IMB definition. So there is a
There needs
gap.
to be a balance, and that needs to be corrected. That is what you're saying. I'll bring in Mr. Shishir Upadhyay. The concerns of Indian vessels being attacked and the legislation the way it stands, do you think it actually manages to safeguard that?
If you recall, in 1999, there was a case of the Alondra Rainbow, a Japanese ship which was hijacked, and the Navy and the Indian Navy and Coast Guard were involved in its recapture. And about 16 or 17 Indonesian pirates were captured and handed over to the Mumbai police for trial. Now, at that time, this law did not exist.
Does it plug in all such
So
lacunae?
in many ways, yes, those legal issues are addressed by this bill. And so as far as the legal mechanism is concerned, we can say that now we have a watertight bill which addresses everything else. But does it stop piracy? I don't think so. It does, of course, help in many ways to curb piracy, but it doesn't...
Does it even deter piracy?
Of course, well, you can say in 2010, out of 60% of the pirates who were arrested were let go scot-free simply because of lack of legal mechanism and various issues involved in getting them to the country for trial in Europe or America or wherever. So as a result, many of these pirates were let go scot-free, and they are the same guys who came back into business with more experience. So to that extent, yes, a legal mechanism which sort of delivers justice, speedy justice, I think it will go a long way in stopping piracy in the long term.
Dr. Gandhi, my question to you is, we've got a peninsula, huge area and huge scope for piracy, okay?
Yes.
The thing is that as of now, in the last 60 years, how many cases of piracy have actually come to the fore? Does India have a clue of that? And is it enough, the number of cases, enough to warrant a legislation like this?
You can see that the number of resolutions passed recently in the Security Council as well as General Assembly calling states to have a piracy legislation. That is why there is a need for updating the law, first thing. As another important reference was made by Speaker, that Alondra Rainbow was the only reported incident as far as India is concerned. But now recently, in the recent the piracy detention, there are 199 pirates, 190 pirates, 199 I think, 199 pirates. They are waiting for trial in Bombay.
Okay.
So there is a heightened incidents due to the Somalian piracy.
And these are all foreign nationals?
Yeah, these are all foreign nationals. They are coming closer to our waters. So there is a need for a bill. And I think you will give opportunity to explain the another question asked, what is about the armed robbery? The armed robbery incident will be covered under the suppression of unlawful act. There is a legislation for that on a fixed platform. Armed robbery happens in the EEZ. So the piracy and the armed robbery is one and the same thing. When the same act happens in the open sea, we call it a piracy. When it happens the same thing in the EEZ and other places, we call the armed robbery.
Okay. On that note, it's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will talk about the issues around grant of bail. Welcome back. The proposed piracy bill seeks to make grant of bail almost impossible. The bill makes it mandatory for the judge to hear the prosecutor before taking up a bail application. The bill also seeks to shift the burden of proof on the accused.
The proposed piracy bill seeks to deter any act of piracy within the 370 kilometers from its coastal baseline known as the exclusive economic zone. If one is accused of any activity prohibited under the proposed bill, it will be difficult for him to escape prosecution. India is among the very few nations which has proposed a piracy bill.
Pirates have, as you know, have shifted their area of operations much closer to the Indian waters. So it is of major concern. There are, I don't have the statistics with me, but a very large number of ships which are currently in the pirates' hands for about a year plus is the time that they have been holding them.
Let's look at some of the proposals in the bill. It empowers officers of the central and state governments to initiate investigation, arrest and prosecute any pirate. Any person accused of piracy will be prosecuted and the nationality will not be a reason for exemption. If a pirate is arrested using arms, ammunition and explosives or is found to cause any form of threat to the crew or passengers of the ship, then the bill shifts the burden of proof on the accused. So now the accused will have to establish he is not guilty and not the other way around.
That eradication of piracy cannot be only because you have made excellent national laws to bring pirates under trial. There has to be international laws which will stop the handlers of the pirates, that means the owners of the pirate.
Persons accused of piracy will not have the right to be released on his own bond unless the public prosecutor is given an opportunity to oppose the application for release. Even the court will have to first record that there was no reasonable grounds for believing that the accused is not guilty of a crime and he is not likely to commit any offence before he is granted bail. The bill empowers the central government to constitute courts. The bill also empowers the courts by extending territorial jurisdiction to hold day-to-day trials for all piracy cases. The designated courts will have a jurisdiction to punish any pirate in the custody of a Coast Guard or Indian Navy.
So Indian Penal Code as it is has a very limited application in terms of punishing people who foreigners cannot be punished, and also offence committed outside Indian territory cannot be. A foreigner, if he commits an offence within Indian territory, can be punished. So it's the extraterritorial application of Indian Penal Code is very limited.
Piracy had spread around 1100 nautical miles from Somalia's coast into the Arabian Sea. According to an estimate, piracy has become a $12 billion industry. Links with terrorism and arms trade have also come to fore. Pirated activities of Somalia pirates has caused $7 billion crores rupees lost to the Indian and international governments. This shows how much amount of money is involved in these kind of crimes. The experts in Navy and experts in maritime law suggest to amend the international laws to curb the activities of piracy on the international waters. Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
The bill empowers any gazetted officer of the central government or of a state government with the powers of arrest of any person, investigation and prosecution excisable by a police officer under the Code of Criminal Procedure. My question to you, Mr. Shishir Upadhyay, the security concerns. See, because you've seen the kind of provisions. These are just one-sided provisions. Once a person is caught, there is no escape. So we know that the noose has really been tightened. That's perfectly all right to deter such activity. My question to you is the kind of security concerns that we have in order to bring in legislations of this kind.
No, I think this law, there was long felt a need for a very strict law, and I think in many ways that this law addresses all those concerns. And if you see India's interest in, we have been one of the worst victims of piracy. We have the 17th largest merchant fleet in the world, and about 100,000 Indian seamen serve on various international ships. And you can see that large number of Indian crew have been held hostage. So piracy has impacted India very adversely, and it was time that we came out with a stringent bill on this. And the other thing is that India, being one of the largest resident maritime powers in the Indian Ocean and a country with global aspirations, I think it is time that the onus was on India to actually come up with a bill which would address, which would be a step forward in curbing piracy. And the rest of the world looks at India in ensuring safety of sea lanes in this region. So to that extent, I think this is a very useful bill, and it is good that it is watertight and it is a deterrent.
My question to you, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, is the point that was made by the Director of Maritime Foundation, international law to apprehend the handlers of the pirates. Can India in any way be proactive or in somehow insert it or make it a part of their legislation? And have they been able to do it?
Two aspects which I thought I must mention. One is piracy nowadays is a transnational crime. What is happening or what you are seeing is only part of the show. That is, the Somalian pirates are coming, about 1,500, 1,600 nautical miles. They are affecting trade, commerce, they're taking hostages. India is badly affected. Now, these are the security concerns. But what we are not seeing is that behind all these are very powerful clans and international criminal organizations as of now. So, to answer your question, I don't think this bill in any way addresses that. It cannot. There will be other laws to address the problems.
These are agreements and other diplomacy involved. Yeah.
Because earlier what was happening is that there is a melee of warships in the region. They are apprehending pirates and they are all leaving them. In fact, the Russian Navy once caught these pirates and they left them about 200 to 300 nautical miles on a small boat. They came in for severe criticism from human rights group. So there was no way in which you could prosecute them. There were two countries who were prosecuting them, that's Kenya and Seychelles, but they were overwhelmed. So we required, as an important maritime nation in the Indian Ocean, we were required to plug in this gap.
The kind of one-sided legislations to deter such activity. The idea is to deter, but in the process, whether it be an Indian, whether it be a Kenyan, whether it be a Somalian, whether it be a Nigerian or anyone else, of any nationality, once he is apprehended, his life is miserable. Which essentially means that all rights of bail have been taken away. The judge has to write in clear terms why he is in favor of granting bail. Even when a bail application is filed, the prosecutor will have the first right to oppose. And over and above, once I make an accusation on you, it's you who has to prove that you are not guilty, which was earlier the role of the state. Now, these four things put together, do you see any escape route for the individual who's caught in this net? Let us imagine a Sri Lankan or some Tamilian fisherman is caught, or there are allegations of piracy on him. How does he deal with it? He's got no escape route. Do you think that's justified?
I don't think so, because you can see in the Act there are presumptions. It's not a new thing that presumptions are brought in. Presumptions are there in some of the offences. Now, this offence is an offence which you will be able to prove only by circumstantial evidence, most of the cases. There will not be any direct evidence. Then you will go normally by presumption. And the presumption clauses covered under the legislation, which are all drawn from the real-time life experience. What are all the things a boat or a skiff which is supposed to involve in piracy, they have it. So that is very important, and we are putting presumption as a guide to the court. And our courts are, vibrant, open, and we have the fundamental rights provisions well ingrained even in the procedure code itself. If that is the case, I don't think, this is a completely a noose is tightened and all these things. Reason for that, the restriction on bail is that it happened to be, most of the pirates happen to be foreigners. In our trial procedure,
So not to let them go.
Yeah, in our trial procedure,
we need to hold them and keep them here.
He has to be there in the entire process of a trial.
Yeah, he has to
That's why we mention about some kind of a specialized course for that, because it will be rapid. It will not take so many years to complete it. So that is the idea.
Yeah, on that note, it's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will show you an interview with Director, National Maritime Foundation, Vice Admiral Pradeep Kaushal. Welcome back. My colleague Raj Kamal Rao spoke to Vice Admiral Pradeep Kaushal, Director, National Maritime Foundation, and tried to get his point of view.
What are the major problems that our Indian government is facing in the international waters? Don't we have any dispute redressal mechanism for this?
Law by itself does not prevent any crime from being committed. Indian Penal Code exists, criminal laws exist, but that does not mean the crime doesn't take place. For crime to be prevented, there's a whole host of other activities which have to be in place. For that, there must be not enough opportunity for crime to take place.
From the economic point of view, how much loss is the Indian government losing from these pirates?
It is difficult to quantify in terms of what has been lost, but it is assessed that between $7 to $12 billion was the total overall cost of piracy globally during the last year.
Government is coming up with the piracy bill to provide stringent punishments to those who commit piracy. Do you agree with the provisions of the bill?
Solution to piracy at sea is not at sea, it is on land. It is not at the stage of trying the pirate, it is at the stage of pirate being recruited for piracy by somebody. See that in that manner, it will be seen that there are probably not more than 25 people or 25 families who are controlling the entire Somali piracy operation. And these people themselves are operating from very safe havens, not even in Africa. They are sitting very comfortably elsewhere, and wherein different laws cannot even touch them. They are so well sanitized by different corridors and moats, if you can call them that.
The bill seeks safety and security of India's maritime trade, including the safety of our vessels and crew members. My question to you, Mr. Shishir Upadhyay, is the role of private security as far as this piracy is concerned. Does it take care of that issue, private security?
I think private security is actually the way forward. And we've seen statistically, so far, no ship which has employed private security with armed guards has ever been hijacked. There might be one or instance, but by and large, nobody has ever been hijacked. Now, the thing is that private security has always been there on land. It is not uncommon to see an armed guard standing in front of a bank or a vehicle carrying cash being escorted by armed guards. Now, what has happened is in the recent years, but 20 years ago, you could go to the high seas and there was nobody out there. So, you are relatively safe. But that has changed now, because a simple small boat with a GPS and a radio set is possible to go out and capture anybody, like the Somali pirates have demonstrated. Now, the navies cannot be omnipresent. They can't be present everywhere. It costs a lot of money. So, these gaps have to be filled in by private security. But then the flip side is that we will have incidents like what happened in Kerala. That is also not acceptable. So, therefore, I think in the long term, we need to come out, the international, the IMO or the international agencies need to come out with international regulation on how to control private security. This bill, of course, doesn't talk about private security, but I think the bills of the future would probably address that as well.
Issue.
And that is going to be a reality.
Dr. Ghosh, you're talking of links of piracy to terrorism and arms trade. And the bill refers to it, but doesn't take care of it entirely.
Yeah, just one point which I mentioned. I don't think I agree with what Shishir said about private security, but that's a different debate.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of collateral damage, consequences of going in for private security. Having said that, regarding terrorism, now there have been increasing concerns about piracy and terrorism mingling together. It is happening in Somalia. For example, the Al-Qaeda, the Al-Shabaab. The Al-Shabaab have trained nearly about 480 ex-pirates from Somalia to form something on the lines of the sea tigers, that erstwhile sea tigers. Now, it is very heartening that the bill refers to this, but I think it doesn't refer to it in entirety. Obviously, we of course need other legislation to look into this, but this is, like I said, a very serious problem, and it is like a time bomb which is ticking, just waiting to explode.
Dr. Gandhi, would you like to respond to that?
No, it is a valid point what Dr. Ghosh has
And also on the private
explained.
security bill.
Yeah. But the legislation has a provision under which, while trying an offence under this act, a designated court may also try an offence other than the offence under this act.
Okay.
So what happens is, it is not the piracy alone.
It's an enabling clause. But
Piracy
doesn't-
plus.
Okay. But then how do you expand that?
Because it is there already. The court can take jurisdiction.
Okay.
Along with the piracy, I said about the suppression
things
of unlawful acts.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
deals with the piracy aspect of it.
Okay.
You have other piracy-related legislation. You have Indian Penal Code provision. All this can be put together
And brought to the court. So there is an enabling
There is
clause.
a provision. There
And
is
you've
a provision.
left it open.
Yeah, open. So you can always,
Include. So
include
it is
that.
up to the judge to include as many
It
laws.
is as investigating officer, when they charge, it is left to them to charge, along with the piracy, any other provisions of law.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.